Ban Yu-1 was born with the incredible ability inherited from his ancestor. He is able to understand any language. When he became an adult, he discovered that he could also absorb someone's skills just by touching. His grandfather always said that they were descendants of the people who built the Tower of Babel. According to the prophecy, one day a genius would be born who could retake this tower. The grandfather believed that Ban was this genius since he was a child, but the protagonist and his family did not believe this story, until one day while waiting for the university acceptance grade, he was summoned and transported to a secret academy. It is there that he finds the legendary Tower of Babel. Ban finally believes in his grandfather and decides to fulfill his ancestor's goal. The story begins with our protagonist Ban Yu-1. When he was 4 years old, the mother comments in a humorous tone that the son is already reading a book. The father replies that he is very intelligent, but the mother thinks that he was the one who taught the boy to speak these words. Suddenly the protagonist starts speaking another language, and his parents are terrified. The father asks how Ban is speaking a language they have never even seen. At that moment someone enters the house saying that Ban inherited the lineage of his ancestor. This guy is the grandfather of the protagonist, and he is carrying his little sister under his arm. He celebrates that a genius was finally born to conquer the Tower of Babel back. The protagonist's family are skeptical. They are already tired of this Tower of Babel nonsense. The mother calls her daughter Yumi and asks if she had fun with her grandfather, while the father warns the old man that he should take a shower first when he returns from the farm. The grandfather is stressed because no one believes that it was his ancestors who built the Tower of Babel. At that moment the old man decides to explain the story to little Ban. He takes his notebook and starts to make some drawings. The grandfather explains that the great ancestor of his family had an ability that allowed him to communicate with all living beings. With this power he led large groups, and together they built a tower that no one can ever destroy. This tower is the Tower of Babel. Ban was just a little boy who believed in his grandfather, but was upset when he found out that the old man did not know the location of this tower. The man promised that one day they would find and recover all the power of his family. When Ban was a child, his grandfather told many stories about the adventures of this ancestor. The protagonist felt that he really had a linguistic ability. His parents did not interfere much because they believed that Ban had fun with the old man's stories. But then the protagonist grew up and realized that that story was too crazy to be true. A few years pass and the scene changes for Ban, sitting in front of the computer waiting to be accepted into a university. His goal was to study political science. He was angry because the results still didn't come out. Deep down the boy was sure he had passed. Suddenly the computer goes off the page and some strange things appear. Ban approaches to see what happened. A blue screen appears in front of the computer in another language. He realizes that it is a different language and still manages to decipher it. The message on the screen congratulated the protagonist for passing the best academy in the alternate dimension. The boy is surprised that he can read this language. The next moment another blue screen appeared informing that Ban will be teleported to the place of practical evaluation. A countdown starts from 10 seconds. The protagonist ends up thinking it's a prank and his sister Yumi was behind it. He couldn't think of someone else to play this kind of prank. Suddenly, an acceptance letter arrives from the university on his computer. Ban can't contain the happiness of having been accepted. The countdown ends. The protagonist believes that this blue screen is a thing of his imagination, due to the mental fatigue he has gone through in the last few days. Suddenly a blue light covers the boy and he disappears without a trace. In this moment someone knocks on the door and enters. It's his sister Yumi. She looks around and doesn't find the protagonist. Meanwhile Ban is teleported and falls into a somewhat dark place. The system warns that the special exam has started for the candidate from a lower dimension. The protagonist feels his headache from the fall and thinks it's too real for an illusion. Another blue notification appears in front of him with the following mission. He must defeat the blind goblins and destroy the core of the dungeon. Ban holds his head in denial, asking when he signed up for something like this. Suddenly a noise is heard behind him and the boy turns around. The blind goblins realize they have an enemy. They talk to each other in a language of their own, but for some reason the protagonist understands everything the monsters are saying. He puts his hand to his mouth so no noise escapes, then thinks it's better to try to get away from here before these things start attacking. Suddenly the goblins separate and start hitting with the bat in all directions. One of these blows almost hits Ban. He realizes that it could be fatal if it was hit, the protagonist begins to take distance. He believes he can get rid of these monsters because they can't see, but suddenly the boy ends up making noise. The goblin runs towards him and the blow grazes his face. Ban falls to the ground and is in total silence. The first goblin asks what happened. The second replies that he heard a sound coming. From this side, he adds that the enemy must still be here. The protagonist is horrified, realizing that even if these guys are blind, they easily identify any sound and movement. Ban realizes that there is no way to continue hiding because he will be found anyway. He immediately has an idea to distract these monsters and buy time. The boy then takes a rock next to his body and throws it in front of the goblins in an opposite direction to his. Without thinking twice, the monsters go towards the noise. It is at this moment that the protagonist attacks from behind using a stone. The goblin notices that the prey is behind and runs towards him, but ends up accidentally hitting his partner. The first goblin takes a fatal blow to the head and falls on top of the second. The protagonist observes the scene. The second goblin realizes the mistake he made. Ban approaches him with the wooden club in hand. He apologizes and says that he is doing this to survive. The next moment he destroys the second goblin. The bodies begin to disappear and the system congratulates him on the first hunt. As a reward, he received the power of the upper dimension. Ban looks scared. A yellow light surrounds his arm. Then the system says that the power of the Babylonian code has been unlocked. This power will be displayed using ideogram. Ideogram is basically symbols that represent concepts of things. The system adds that the concepts of monsters are being absorbed into it. The protagonist finally realizes his new ability. In addition to deciphering any language, he can also extract concepts from things. The system says that concepts have been copied. It is recommended to store or separate this in the Babylonian code. After applying it to the statistics, Ban decides to absorb the concept for himself. After doing so, he says that he already feels more confident. The system says that the boy will get stronger. Ban begins to feel an aura fill his body. He actually feels stronger when absorbing the concepts of these goblins. The protagonist looks around, noticing that the monsters disappeared after they had their abilities absorbed. Ban also realizes that in addition to absorbing the concept for himself, he can also apply it to other things, such as objects, for example. The protagonist finally feels safe and begins to use the concepts to create a weapon. A few hours later, Ban clears the dungeon of the blind goblins with the help of an artifact created by himself. The boy delivers the core to the system, which congratulates him for passing the practical test of the special dimension exam. Lower, the protagonist breathes a sigh of relief and asks if he can finally go home. The system replies that the candidate will be transferred to the dormitory. Ban initially thought he would go home if he made it out of the dungeon alive, but in fact he was sent to a world he had never seen before, an academy called Union. At that moment, Ban falls into his dorm, totally bewildered. The system asks him to put on his uniform and attend the interview. The protagonist complains, saying he didn't want to study here, he wanted to return home. A moment later, the boy puts on his uniform. He goes towards the interview room, determined to demand his teleportation back to the house. Suddenly, Ban opens the door and comes across a green woman. He thinks she is beautiful, but wonders if she is an alien. The woman welcomes her and introduces herself as Yahello, magic combat teacher at Union Academy. Ban is embarrassed. Yahello congratulates him on passing the exam. She explains that Ban has caught the attention of all the superiors. He is the first student in 500 years to create a new artifact during the evaluation. The protagonist listens to it in silence. Yahello applauds his intelligence. Ban doesn't think this is something impressive, but he believes that the difference between them is the world they came from. Maybe for the woman it was a great victory. Suddenly something catches his attention and he looks out the window. Ban soon asks the teacher what that huge tower is. Yahello heard that people from lower dimensions have never heard about the Union Academy or about this tower. With this question from the protagonist, she concludes that it is true. The teacher then explains that this tower is the reason why the Union Academy was created. They teach the students with the greatest talents in all dimensions and help them to reach the top of this tower. This is the only objective of the Union Academy, to beat the dungeon that is the origin of all the mysteries and dangers of this world. Yahello finally replies that this tower is the Tower of Babel. The protagonist is surprised, and the first thing that comes to mind is his grandfather. The old man has always told stories about this tower, and about how his ancestors were responsible for creating it, but something still didn't make sense in Ban's head. He didn't understand why the teacher referred to the tower as the most powerful dungeon. The boy wondered if the tower was taken over by monsters. Anyway, it was something that couldn't be answered now. That tower made the protagonist enroll in the Union Academy. His goal became to fulfill his ancestors' wish and regain the glory of his family. After that day, the the protagonist was sent back home and was able to explain to his family the reason for his sudden disappearance. The grandfather was shocked that he had finally found the Tower of Babel, while his father only supported him to do what had to be done. A few days pass. Ban was already a student within the Union Academy. At that moment he was fighting in the lower dungeon, called Goblin Cave. The protagonist was already able to cast spells and had a greater understanding of his abilities. Now only one attack was needed to decimate a large group of goblins. The Babylonian Code was the most incredible power Ban could have. Thanks to this ability, the protagonist could absorb and manipulate the concepts of all monsters. When an enemy is defeated, his concepts can be absorbed by Ban. After doing this, the protagonist can use it on himself or imbue the statistics in any object he wants. It was thanks to this that the protagonist created his first artifact. In that first dungeon he fell. His weapon was a bat with iron spikes, fatal for low-level monsters. Ban always imbued the concepts of the goblins and the artifact got stronger and stronger. At that moment the protagonist calls the system. He wants to know what new concepts he got from these monsters. A different statistic appears in the system called soul. The boy wonders what this means. The bat starts to get excited and the protagonist asks if he wants this concept. The artifact responds positively, so Ban agrees and decides to imbue this statistic. A very powerful light surrounds the weapon. The system informs that the combined concepts form a perfect harmony, causing a transformation in the artifact. The next moment an explosion happens and the protagonist covers his face. The weapon's stats are increased. Ban realizes that his weapon is now a snake. He tries to approach with his hand and is afraid that his new artifact will not recognize him, but she is able to identify its owner. The protagonist realizes that his personality is the same as before, but now has doubts if the artifact can still turn into a magic weapon or shield. The snake wraps it in his hand and Ban decides to give it a name. He says that she will be called Eve, then decides to check if her stats have increased. Ban observes the board in front of him with his own information. The life stat seems to be a concept similar to the level in a game. The flesh seems to represent physical stats, but what the protagonist doesn't understand is why the soul stat is so high. He still doesn't understand all the names in that painting, so he assumes what each one means. Below he comes across some of his abilities. The first is called all-seeing eyes, the second is called all-hearing ears. The protagonist thinks that these abilities are probably related to language skills. After that, he turns to Eve and asks if she thinks she's capable of surprising everyone now. The snake responds negatively with his head. Ban replies that everything is fine and presses the teleport button. He reappears in the auditorium of the Unio Academy, where the entrance ceremony is taking place. All the students gather. The protagonist is shocked by the amount of people. At that moment he activates his ability called All-Seeing Eyes, which allows the user to understand the aura and strength of a target in a deeper way. That's when Ban realized that all those students were extremely strong. Unlike the protagonist who entered through a lower dimension, these regular students went through another selection process to enter the academy, but this is not something that makes the protagonist afraid. At that moment he tries to find his place in the auditorium. Suddenly someone yells at Ban and he turns around trying to understand what happened. The frog guy orders the protagonist to leave the upper dimension because he is from a lower dimension. Ban quickly obeys and starts to get out of there. This discrimination of the students who went through the regular process was expected by Ban. He already knew that these guys were going to think they were better than those who came from a lower dimension. Our boy keeps walking by the students when someone calls him. He then sees his roommate called to a slight, who also came from a lower admission. Ban approaches and realizes that the students from lower dimensions are well exiled. The chairs are far from the rest of the students. At this point the protagonist uses his skill and is surprised. The rank of these students does not seem to be from a lower dimension. Ban believes that they are strong enough to destroy those regulars. He soon tells his roommate that these places are amazing. A slight does not understand if it is irony. A slight is the roommate that Ban met in the dorm before the entrance ceremony. In the first meeting they had, the protagonist was threatened with a sword. After a slight conversation finally understood that the boy was his roommate. They then talked about how was the training to enter the academy. The friend learned that the protagonist went through a goblin dungeon. He thought it was something very easy to do, but we all know how much the protagonist took the first dungeon. A slight says that even a new recruit with basic training could hunt a goblin easily. Ban looks silly hearing this. After the conversation, the protagonist remembers that he arrived from training and didn't go to take a shower. Then he starts to take off his shirt to go to the bathroom, but his friend has a slightly strange reaction, as if he is embarrassed to see his body. It was not the kind of reaction Ban expected to see from a male roommate. The scene returns to the current moment in the auditorium. Ban starts to greet the girls next to a slide. He can't look much at the girl with pink hair because he thinks she's too cute. She quickly turns her face embarrassed. The girl with the black eye looks at Ban in a different way, causing the protagonist to be embarrassed. She soon asks what this thing on her arm is. Ban realizes that Eve has been discovered and then decides to show her. The three of them are in awe of the snake. A slight realizes that this is the same artifact as before. He was surprised that it has changed so much in just a few days. The girl with pink hair asks to touch her because she thought it was too cute. The black-eyed one gives a satisfied smile and introduces herself as Dakoyun, daughter of a martial artist, then asks the protagonist what her name is. He introduces himself as Ban Yuwon. The protagonist sits next to her and asks if a martial artist likes to let out explosions. This question makes the girl very embarrassed and lowers her head. She tries to answer that he's not totally wrong. The pink-haired girl tries to get out of this subject a little and also introduces herself. Her name is Rachel. A slight also introduces herself and says that everyone can just call him Light, which is his nickname. Yun turns his head and Light doesn't understand what happened. The protagonist soon warns that the ceremony is about to begin. He soon sees Professor Yamaina sitting next to the other superiors. The friend asks if the protagonist passed by Professor Yamaina when he arrived here. Ban answers yes and asks if he does too. Suddenly the conversation is interrupted by a light. At that moment the ceiling of the auditorium opens and an overwhelming pressure enters involving all the students. Everyone tries to cover themselves and no one goes unscathed, not even the special student. Soon they hear an oppressive voice thanking everyone for their presence. Then this person says that he is going to start another entrance ceremony of the Unio Academy. A little later the teacher Yamaina meets with the protagonist and his classmates. She asks if they also found the principal's speech impressive. The students are silent. Ban then asks if that giant eye is the principal. Yamaina is surprised to hear this and questions if he could really see that eye. Rachel says that most people are too intimidated to even look up. Yun looks at Ban believing that he used some kind of special method. The protagonist tries to disguise what he said and says that in fact he didn't see anything. He just felt a big eye looking at him. Yamaina replies that anyway they won't see the director again unless it causes problems. She then approaches the protagonist and asks if he wants to have a conversation with the principal. Ban replies that this seems like a curse. The teacher laughs and soon advises the group to be the best. She says that the victory of her students is very important to her. Light asks if Yamaina will be responsible for them, and she replies that that's right. Light is surprised. The teacher decides to formally introduce herself to everyone. She says that her name is Yamaina and she teaches magic combat. The teacher adds that she has been assigned as the head of her waist class, which is class 11, so from today they will work together for the next 5 years. Light asks if the lower-level special admission students should not be assigned to associate professors. Yamaina replies that normally that's right, but they are such special students that she was assigned to take care of them. At that moment, the teacher takes a cup of tea and the tone of her voice changes. She then advises the boys to be careful with regular admission students. Ban observes the teacher's words and realizes that she is referring not only to grades and practical classes, but also to confrontation. Physical and teasing fights between students. Matters outside of internal competition is something that not even teachers can interfere with. Yamaina says that from now on the 4 of them must stay together. They are rare students with lower-level special admission. Yun is still thinking about the hostility that the teacher spoke of. She is not sure if she can hold her own in a confrontation against these regular. At this point, the teacher gives another very important information. She says that the 4 are also members of the group that will climb the tower together until graduation. Ban thinks about it. The teacher smiles, saying that they have talked a lot and now she needs to give a small gift that the academy has prepared for them. A strong light emerges among the group of students. Yamaina adds that she will explain the rules and details after receiving this artifact. A little later the group held a pendant in their hands. The teacher explained that this will serve as a student ID card to identify and access all the details of the students. The group can also use this pendant to teleport to any place within the Unio Academy. At this moment the students look at the pendant thinking about what they are going to do. The magic of teleportation is what impresses everyone the most. Light then points out that they will need to keep this stupid pendant if they want to enter the tower. Whether they like it or not, they will need to take good care of it. Ruchel soon asks why the protagonist was left behind. Yun replies that there is no way to know until they meet him. The girl feels internally that there is something strange. After all, in the middle of the conversation, the teacher received a call and Ban was the only one selected to leave the room. The scene changes to the protagonist sitting in a chair without understanding why he is there. The boy starts to sweat cold because he knew he was going to have a private conversation with the director. He doesn't understand what he may have done wrong for this to happen on the first day. Suddenly a voice says that the boy doesn't need to be afraid to look at his true form. The protagonist looks up towards the voice and all he sees is a bear in front of him. He doesn't believe that this is the principal. A voice then says that the protagonist can call him master. Ban agrees. The principal then says that he doesn't normally interfere with the growth of the students. If they are weak, they will remain weak. If they are strong, they will remain strong. It is also not important to him whether the students will remain alive or not when they climb the tower. His goal is just to witness with his own eyes the one who reaches the end of the tower. The protagonist looks at the bear without much expression and remembers everything he heard from his grandfather when he was a child. The old man always said that his family was the only one who could rescue the tower. He remembers the day he entered the academy and found out about the Tower of Babel. It was when he promised that he was ready to risk his life and recover his family's honor, but now that he has seen the number of students who also want this, he may have been a little confused. At this point, the protagonist calls the master and asks what exactly the tower is. The director replies that the tower is the path to the divine. Ban is surprised. The master repeats what he said at the beginning about not interfering in the lives of the students, but today he will make an exception, because he was able to see in the protagonist the greatest potential that has ever stepped into this academy. The bear then raises his arm and an atmosphere spread throughout the room. Suddenly something invades that pendant that Ban received from the teacher. The master says that he will make some preparations to help him prepare to climb the tower. He reveals that he has expanded his exploration privileges outside the academy. This means that from now on the protagonist can travel to any dungeon, so Ban must make sure to hone his skills before climbing the tower. The boy tries to understand everything that is happening. The director then opens a portal under his feet and says that if Ban makes any progress, he will unlock the next privilege for him. Before being teleported, the protagonist asks what kind of privilege. The DM replies that maybe a solo exploration of the tower. Ban falls into the hole. The director says he is looking forward to the next meeting. Suddenly the protagonist falls into the teacher's arms. The woman asks curiously how the meeting with the director went. Ban realizes that he is close to her melons and quickly walks away. Yamina says that the director always dismisses visitors like this. One day he will get used to it. She takes a look at Ban's pendant and realizes that he has been given permission to leave the academy. The protagonist says that the headmaster told him to quickly improve his skills. Yamina says that this is a big deal. Now he can freely explore the outer dungeons outside the tower and can visit outer towns at will. This also means that Ban will gain much more experience and preparation than the others. To be honest, at first the protagonist did not understand that the director saw ability in him. In fact, the boy thought he was so weak that that's why he was getting supplementary classes. Teacher Yamina soon says that she is jealous. Teachers are usually too busy to go around. Ban asks if it's true. She replies that the Unio Academy is designed for the students, so the teachers should be in charge of providing everything they can to them. Now she's jealous because the protagonist will be able to leave the academy and even visit stores. The teacher then approaches Ban's face and says that there is a beautiful outdoor city that she can recommend. Her name is Ronica. The protagonist feels a little embarrassed and asks if he should bring her something from there. The scene changes to a little later. Ban is walking outside the gym. He remembers that the teacher asked him to bring 2 bottles of wine called honeymoon. It is made by the priests of the temple. Ban did not expect that the teacher would ask a student to bring alcohol to the gym. Anyway, this is not something that needs your attention now. At that moment, the boy takes a deep breath, thinking that he should use the privileges to his advantage. He then opens the inventory and realizes something. The bag that his grandfather gave him before he returned to the gym was there. At that time, the protagonist was organizing his things to go back to the gym. That's when his grandfather arrived with a bag and said he could take whatever he wanted from there. Ban opened the bag and found pure gold. He asked if he could really take something like that. The old man laughs, saying that these are the legacies of his ancestors who dedicated themselves to finding the Tower of Babel. The protagonist thanked him very happily, but soon after they got into an argument because the boy didn't know how he was going to bring all this to the academy. Back to the current moment, the protagonist thinks that fortunately he has the inventory for it. His grandfather always said that gold is valuable anywhere in the world, so he decided to pick up some pieces before going around. Ban notes that the preparations are complete and decides to venture out. A little later he arrives in a city and realizes that even though it is another dimension, the urban landscape looks quite similar. Suddenly he notices some small spaceships flying everywhere. The passersby are also very different from the ordinary people of his dimension. At that moment someone called the protagonist. Two green guys ask who he is and what he is doing here. Ban doesn't have time to answer because the guys soon recognize his uniform. They see that the boy is from the Union Academy. The men immediately pay respect and introduce themselves as guards in charge of the western border of the academic city Ronica. The way the men act draws the attention of passersby around. The protagonist also introduces himself as Ban Yu-won and says that he is a first-year student at the Union Academy. One of the guards asks if he received permission from the director to leave the academy. Ban replies yes. The master said he could explore freely. The guard then says that it is thanks to the hard work of the director and the academy team that the city remains peaceful to this day, so he thanks the protagonist for his presence. The boy. He is a little embarrassed listening to all this. The second guard offers to help the protagonist if he needs it. Since he is a first-year student, he probably doesn't know much about the city or its workings. Ban really understands that he is a great help and asks if men can do it. The man replies yes. This is part of a guard's job, so Ban can feel free to ask anything he is curious about. The protagonist soon points to something that looks more like a flying car and says he would like to get one of those. He asks how much it costs. Moments later we see the boy on top of a floating bike at many kilometers per hour. He is really enjoying the fact that he is out of the gym. The guards watch him fly at full speed. When the protagonist asks the price of flying cars, the guard said that the basic model of the floating bike cost 250,000 ronias. It's quite expensive for them, but not for the protagonist who had several gold bars in his inventory. He took one out and asked if that was enough to pay. The guys opened their mouths in surprise and one of them soon asked where Ban got such a large gold bar. The scene comes back to the protagonist on his floating bike. He discovered that a single gold bar is worth 7,500,000 ronias. Ban doesn't even know how to thank his grandfather for forcing him to bring something like this into this world. Suddenly Eve appears on his arm. The protagonist asks what she thinks of this floating bike. The boy reports that it was infused with Yo and Gue, turning her into a living artifact. The protagonist adds that her name is Lilith, and he hopes that his artifacts will have a good relationship. At that moment the boy begins to repeat the things he has already done today. He has already taken the drink from teacher Yamina. He has already got a friend for Eve, so he concludes that it is time to go back to school. The scene changes to Ban. Light hands him a glass of water, and we can see on his face that he is angry. The boy scolds the protagonist for disappearing without saying anything and now coming back hungover. Ban apologizes. He tells his classmates that teacher Yamina insisted, so he couldn't refuse. Light was annoyed that he was his roommate. He wouldn't have worried if he had been warned before. Yun notices something on his amulet and asks if this badge is the sign of the representative role he received in exchange for drinking with the teacher. The protagonist assumes that he can't say what really happened, so he only says that it's a representative role for having completed the task given by the teacher. Light enters the conversation and says that Yamina is responsible for them, so the group cannot reject any of her tasks. Yun does not think exactly so. She says that if the group needs a representative it should be her. The girl states that she is the strongest among the four. At that moment she looks into Ban's eyes and asks if he agrees. The boy doesn't answer anything, but Light loses his patience and tells the girl that she shouldn't talk like that. They are a group and should support each other, not try to be superior to the other. Light points to Yun and goes on to say that this attitude is ridiculous. Acting like it's better is not good for the group that will climb the tower. Yun is silent. To finish, Light says that he also doesn't agree that she is the strongest among the four. Yun smiles and says that it's a little contradictory for the guy to say that everyone is equal in strength, considering that yesterday he himself asked Yamina if he could climb the tower alone. Ban and Ruchel are just watching the fight unfold. Light tries to give an explanation as to why he asked that, but he just stutters. Ban lies tirefully on the table and thinks that his plan to talk to the group about tomorrow went down the drain. Meanwhile, the tension between Light and Yun continues. At first the protagonist didn't want to be the representative of the four, but now he kind of understands why he was chosen by Yamaina among the members of the group. Ban sees Light as someone with ridiculously strong pride. Yun is incredibly self-centered and bound to make enemies, while Rachel is surprisingly good. She doesn't have the personality to lead other people. Thinking about it, the protagonist decides to give his opinion in the group. He raises his hand and says that the representative doesn't necessarily have to be someone stronger. Yun questions why he thinks so. Ban replies that someone stronger will make all the decisions of the group on his own, and the representative's goal is to unite the members. But if he acts like this, he will end up separating everyone. The three look at him, understanding his point of view. The protagonist continues to say that anyway, the president of the class needs to be someone who can offer fair and good solutions for everyone. That's why he thinks he should be the representative. Yun gets up from the table and says that since the teacher has the authority to appoint the class representative, she will accept that he has this position. Ban thanks him. Suddenly the girl's face darkens and she says that honestly the only person she really wants to lead is him. The protagonist asks what that means. She says that she is willing to accept the unnecessary to conquer the tower. Light begins to tremble with anger and wonders what she means by unnecessary. The protagonist tries to calm down and falls on the table tired. Rachel calls Ban's attention and he looks at her. The girl with bright eyes asks where her snake is. She really wanted to touch her at least once. Ban is startled by this request. Later that day, the protagonist met with his class for a trial class. Several of the students were really strangers. They were scattered while the teacher explained the test. The man says that for the first class he thought of starting with a light training session, but as we know, the students of the regular admission are unbearable. They tell the teacher that they prefer to fight with the students of the lower admission. Light tells his group that it seems the academy divides the classes based on the students' abilities, and as we can see, Class 1 hates Class 11. At that moment, the stone guy notices a pin on Ban's uniform. He soon recognizes that it is something done by teacher Yamaina. After all, she is the goddess of flowers. The guy is overcome by jealousy and screams fiercely for the teacher to let him fight Ban. The students put their hand to their ear after this deafening scream. The teacher asks Ban if it's okay to fight Erecto. The scene changes for teacher Yamaina. She accesses the information of her students and realizes that at this moment they are in the arena, in a joint task with the special upper class. The woman is scared because there is no way for a class from the lower dimension to be able to train with the class from the higher dimension. Yamaina is worried about her students. She tells herself that she doesn't know who prepared this prank, but she feels that this person did it out of malice. The scene comes back to the protagonist and he apologizes to the teacher, claiming that he is not at the level of these students and does not think he can win. The teacher replies that this is not an excuse. Ban wonders if this guy is trying to help the regular students humiliate the lower admission. He then turns to the teacher and says that it is not an excuse, that's the truth. Ban adds that he was accepted as a special admission student because of his unique ability, not because of his combat skills. The protagonist even says that he has other ways for the teacher to evaluate his ability as a special student, so it wouldn't make sense to force him to fight. The man gets stressed by the way Ban speaks and starts yelling. He asks if the boy is trying to teach a teacher. The protagonist asks if he is not an assistant teacher. The man does not accept this question and takes 5 more points from the ban. In total, the boy has already lost 7 points for not obeying the teacher. Ban takes a deep breath, wondering if this is how this guy is going to play. The next moment, the boy has an idea. He says that it would be better to take advantage of this week as preparation time and do the fight next week. His group is surprised. Everyone is silent while Ban repeats what he said before. The students of the regular admission begin to mock him, saying that a week of preparation seems like a joke. Meanwhile, a girl in a hat sitting on the upper steps silently observes the unfolding of the situation. The students complain that the protagonist is running away from the fight. Someone says that it is obvious that his skill is at rock bottom, that's why he's asking for a week of preparation. The teacher arrives at the height of anger and asks if the protagonist still wants to change the schedule of his class. Ban looks bored, while Light trembles with fear. The teacher then declares that he has a decision. Next Tuesday there will be an official fight between Erecto and Ban. The format will be completely open to the public and the entire academy will be able to watch the live broadcast. Ban comes to the conclusion that in fact the guy wants to make his humiliation a great spectacle. The teacher approaches, saying that it is better for the boy to show his skills, since he asked for this period of preparation. The protagonist quickly interrupts the teacher, answering answering that he already understood. After that he waves to Erecto, informing him that he is looking forward to the fight next week. The stone guy looks at him annoyed. Ban turns his back and starts to leave. In fact, the protagonist did not want to greet Erecto. What he really wanted was to use his skill to confirm the opponent's stats. And that worked, the boy sadly realized. The level of the enemy, it looks like it's going to be a tough fight. Erect has a high level and a lot of strength. The protagonist believes that if it was any member of his team, it would be easy to defeat this guy. So he regrets being the weakest of the group, but he is determined to defeat the enemy and level up to help his team at the Tower of Babel. At this moment the protagonist approaches the girls and asks why their faces look so gloomy. That's when he notices the absence of Yun. Girl faces the enemy class and says that unlike the representative of her class, she is an expert in combat, then questions if they are not curious to see the skill of an inferior student of special admission. The protagonist realizes the problem that is arising. Yun takes an elastic band to tie her hair while daring anyone to face her. The students look at her with anger in the eyes. Meanwhile, the girl stands in the middle of the arena, waiting for some opponent. The teacher grit his teeth. The protagonist even tries to use his skill on the girl, but for some reason his eyes can't fully comprehend the extent of Yun's strength. All he can see is a dark aura exuding from the girl. There's no way the students of class 1 can't feel her overwhelming aura. At that moment Yun makes the sign with his hand challenging him Erect to fight her. Just like he did with Ban, the students look towards the stone man. The girl's face is terrifying when she says she will crush him. Erect feels a chill run down his spine. Ban decides not to interfere. He notices that Erect is terrified. After all, he was his original target, but now he was challenged by someone he didn't expect, and to make matters worse is a girl used to combat. Anyway, the protagonist thinks the guy will have problems, because if he backs off people will notice, but if he fights he will be so hurt that a week will not be enough for his recovery. The protagonist quickly has an idea and goes towards Yun. He says that he will have a fight with Erecto next week, so if she wants to she'll have to wait her turn. The girl doesn't understand why he's intervening and asks if everything is okay. Ban confirms and thanks him for the concern, but says he really wants to fight to prove his own skills. Yun is surprised by these words and turns around embarrassed. She says she thought the boy was just a guy who trusted tricks, but maybe he can have a little masculinity. After that the girl declares that she will not fight Erecto, but asks if there is someone brave to face her. No one dares to answer. The girl complains that they were barking so loud a little while ago, but now that a real threat has appeared they are hiding like a dog. Yun starts to walk away when suddenly someone asks who she is calling dog. A man with horns says that it is always the weak who unite in packs, the same ones who pretend to protect their little groups. Yun looks expressionlessly on his face, while the protagonist wonders who this guy is. Even among the special class he seems to be on another level. Light says that this guy is Ortima, a ruler of the Kedius dimension. The protagonist seems confused without knowing who Ortima is and what dimension is Kedius. The friend explains that excluding the Union Academy, there are 10 dimensions with the highest hierarchies. Ortima comes from a family that rules one of these dimensions, which is called Kedius. Ban finally understands the size of the problem. The climate closes 100% between Yun and Ortima. A few minutes later the guy approaches the teacher and asks for something. Rachel asks what the object in the teacher's hand is. Light replies that it is a recording device. They must be filming a public video. The teacher soon throws the object up. The protagonist asks what happens after it is filmed. Light replies that as far as he knows they share everything in something called an intranet, but he doesn't know what that means. Ban quickly opens his system. The friend asks if he knows what an intranet is. The protagonist replies yes. It's a network created by companies or educational institutions to exchange information. At that moment Ban opens AniTube and shows it to them. Rachel immediately finds the channel where the live broadcast of the academy is being held. The protagonist realizes that the professor is doing the will of the students for higher admission, but is confident that the guy will not have his glory. At that moment Yun and Ortima face each other, both exuding an oppressive aura. Yun calls the guy a newbie and says he will let him take the first step. Ortima raises her hand in her direction and decides that she will end this arrogant attitude. The next moment the man orders her to kneel. A strong power catches all the students and they feel their bodies getting out of control, as if he is being forced to kneel. The protagonist realizes that it is a type of power that is out of his reach. Some students can't stand it and falls to the ground with the pressure. Ban sees his body conflicting with his brain. It seems that his body wants to obey, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Suddenly Ban widens his eyes and says that this power is a distortion of natural law. Light soon asks if he has discovered what the principle of this ability is. The protagonist is about to answer when he feels someone grabbing his arm. He turns around and sees Rachel, then asks what happened, but the girl starts shaking as she looks at the overwhelming power in front of her. At that moment Yun increases his energy and destroys Ortima's power. Everyone is impressed. They thought Ortima's skill was the strongest in that location. The opponent praises Yun for eliminating his power. He teases the girl saying that apparently she has some ability. Yun replies that he can't say the same about him. After all, Ortima's power is as ridiculous as his horns. The guy laughs and tries to attack with the same power again, but the girl wastes no time and runs at him prepared with a kick. Ortima is surprised by a real combat. Yun asks if the guy really thought she was going to be waiting for him to concentrate to attack her. At that moment Ortima is hit and thrown back. He starts to prepare a spell on his hands while thinking he should be more attentive. Suddenly Yun appears behind him and says that the guy has to work his body more, since her brain doesn't work. Ortima quickly turns with his hand to attack her, but Yun was faster and landed another kick to her face. She mocked, saying that he was terrible at fighting. The guy tries to hit Yun in every possible way, but it's in vain. Light is shocked to see how overwhelming Yun is. She is defeating the commander of a dimension easily. The protagonist says that it seems that that guy is used to suppressing and defeating the opponent using the distortion of natural law, but this method did not work on Yun. That's why he is losing. While they talk, Ortima keeps getting beaten. The protagonist says that the guy is good with powers, but not in real combat. Light is surprised that Ban is understanding the principles of their abilities. At that moment Ortima asks how Yun dares to insult him. The girl asks if he is still able to speak and continues attacking. Suddenly the guy launches a fierce attack with all his power. He ends up hitting the ground, eventually destroying everything. Ortima soon screams with fire in her eyes, saying that he will destroy her. Yun activates the fatal rope skill and prepares to attack as well. Suddenly someone claps and says that it is enough. The next moment Professor Yamina destroys the attack of the two with her own skill. The arena is covered by flowers and the opponents look at each other trying to understand what happened. Yamina says that in this academy students are not encouraged to fight for their lives. She gives an angelic smile and adds that it is better to save this for the tower. After a lot of conversation, the teacher breaks the hallucination of the flowers. Ban is shocked that it is an illusion. He even managed to smell the flowers. Ortima just turns his back and leaves. Yun praises the teacher for being quite strong and retreats to her group. She asks the protagonist how it went. He replies that the girl was amazing and was about to say more things when Rachel hugged him from behind. Ban asks if anything happened. The girl just trembles. He realizes that she is still scared of Yun and tells himself that this is cute. Suddenly their attention is drawn to Professor Yamina. She tells Professor Farrell that he deserves a punishment. The guy keeps his head down while being scolded. Yamina says that he continued even though he knew things could go wrong. Farrell apologizes, but Yamina says that this will not end with a simple apology, so he must be prepared. After that the teacher leaves. She approaches the protagonist and her mood soon changes. Yamina adjusts his brooch and says that he cannot use his gift wrongly. The students are shocked to see how the teacher totally changes her personality with Ban. Yamina says goodbye to the students and leaves. The protagonist realizes that the teacher's intention was to calm things down, but now it seems that she has shaken it even more. At that moment the students look very angry at Ban, as if the boy had stolen something from them. The next day the news about Yun and Ortima's fight spreads. Everyone comments about an inferior having beaten a regular admission student. Someone comments that the first-year students look amazing. The recorded video shows exactly how Ortima had no chance at all. In the video also appears the protagonist and the teacher. The students notice the way she treats him and ask what this boy has. The scene changes to the protagonist and his team. Ban reads some comments from that video and says that the whole world seems to be talking about them. Yun says that there is something very strange about it. The protagonist asks what it is. She then comments that Ortama was the guy known to have the greatest potential in Class 1, but it turns out that she noticed a girl in a hat in the upper corner of the stairs. Yun felt a much greater power coming from this girl. Ban replies that she couldn't notice nothing. Meanwhile, Light says that Ban's name is spread throughout the school community. The protagonist says that he is being targeted because the students are afraid to challenge the true potential of his group. That is Yun. The girl angrily asks if the protagonist knows what the students are really talking about. His name is not being mentioned in anything involving the fight. Ban preferred to act as if he didn't know that people were talking about him and the teacher. At that moment, Light draws attention to Rachel, who is sitting far from them. It seems that the girl doesn't. He managed to overcome the fear he has of Yun. The protagonist doesn't understand how they are still sharing the same room. Suddenly he has an idea and takes something out of the inventory. The boy is determined to make Rachel feel more comfortable. He then takes out a special elixir jelly concentrated in thousands of fruits. It promotes the overall growth in the statistics. The protagonist offers the jam to his friends to spread on bread. Rachel smells it and looks towards the jam. Light and Rachel start eating. They are surprised by the taste and comment that this jam is the best thing in the world. The two devour everything that comes their way. The protagonist looks at Rachel and calls her to join them. In the blink of an eye, the girl approaches with the chair close to the protagonist and asks if he could make one of these for her too. Ban quickly hands her a loaf of bread. She eats it and says it's very good. The fruits are fresh. Light is impressed that this jelly is made by Ban's skill. Meanwhile, Yun asks to eat more. The protagonist replies that she can eat as much as she wants. She says that she feels like she is eating something precious. Ban replies that it is not that expensive. Besides that they are a team. The best thing is to share it with everyone. Rachel continues to eat her bread, all happy. Meanwhile, Yun refuses to eat for free. Even though Ban says that everything is fine, she suddenly gets up and pulls the protagonist by the tie, then says she will personally teach him a martial art in exchange for this elixir. Ban looks on in disbelief with the bread in his mouth. Suddenly, Yun uses her pendant to teleport with the protagonist to a training room. The boy says that they left in the middle of the meal to come here and asks what she will teach. Yun uses a wooden sword and asks him not to move carelessly. Suddenly she runs to attack and Ban is taken by surprise. The sword stops inches from his face. Yun laughs, saying it was an impulse. The protagonist is paralyzed. He notes that it was a movement without an ounce of hesitation or doubt. It's hard to believe that this scam was executed by a human, but it was at that exact moment that Ban discovered a new concept called penetration. The protagonist wonders what it means. At that moment, Yun tries to get his attention and asks him to concentrate. She explains that an impulse doesn't exist in just one form. It can be done with anything. The girl soon shows the most basic and fundamental meaning of an impulse. She makes a quick movement with the sword and pushes forward. She makes a sequence of the same movements and again to the wooden sword near the protagonist's face. Yun finishes by saying that there are numerous variations, but these are the basics. He only needs to worry about making an impulse. The protagonist understands a little of the basic concepts that she wanted to convey, but he also knows that this girl has trained for years, so for her it will be easy. At that moment, Yun asks if he wants to try. Ban replies yes. However, he asks her to be patient because it will be a clumsy imitation. The girl is in the background laughing. She says that she spent years mastering this, so it wouldn't make sense for him to learn so fast. Suddenly, the protagonist surprises her. He makes the same sequence of movements and stops the wooden sword inches from his face. The girl is surprised and wonders how he understood the concept just by looking. On the other hand, Ban believes that he can't replicate the attack completely because so far he has been too focused on mixing concepts. He did it because he thought he could only get stronger by combining them. At that moment, Ban takes off his coat to be more comfortable, then declares that he can get stronger by strengthening his power, so now he feels safe to replicate the girl's fatal attack. Yun is silent watching the series of blows. After that, the protagonist tries to catch his breath and she says that there is no reason to try so hard. Yun advises him to try later when he fights a difficult opponent. Ban agrees. Suddenly several tabs of the system appears in front of him. He realizes that he has just increased his stats just by brandishing the sword a few times. On the first screen the system says that he has understood and absorbed the concept of penetration. Swordsmanship has also been absorbed as a subconcept of martial arts. The last notification shows that he has learned and internalized the concept of martial arts. The protagonist was very happy with how much he gained in just one training. Suddenly another notification appears informing him that his stats have skyrocketed. The protagonist is shocked because the penetration skill was a concept he just won and is already at level 16. In addition, his swordsmanship did not increase for anything. Ban remembers that he eliminated several goblins and nothing changed, but now his swordsmanship has increased to 20. His combat skills have also doubled overall. The boy wonders how this is possible. Suddenly Yun approaches and complains that he lied to her, saying that he had never practiced martial arts. Ban tries to explain that he really never did. He just did what she had told him and it worked. The girl doesn't believe it and says that if people only learned in the first class, they wouldn't need teachers. The protagonist shakes his head agreeing with his thought, but says that maybe he learned fast because she is very good at teaching. This statement made the girl very embarrassed and her cheeks turned red. Ban goes on to say that for the first time watching her movements, he felt the depth behind them. These words made Yun even more shy. The protagonist couldn't stop praising the girl. She preferred to turn her back so as not to show that she was embarrassed. Ban soon says that anyway he loved her teachings and intends to pay with the jelly elixir that she liked, but Yun replies that this does not make up for what she taught today. The protagonist asks if she is serious and questions what she needs. The girl laughs because her plan worked. She then gives an angelic smile and says that he doesn't have to worry, but makes it clear that in the future he will figure out how to pay her. Ban is surprised because he has never seen such a smile on this girl. Yun soon returns to his normal mood and says that they need to go to the next class. The next moment the girl activates her teleportation and disappears. The protagonist stands there thinking to himself that she can also have an adorable expression. The scene changes to Rachel and Light, both walking through the gym courtyard and fiddling with their cell phones. Suddenly a guy bumps into Rachel and pushes her back. The girl gets a fright. The blue-haired student asks where she is from. Rachel simply paralyzes. The fear is so great that she can't give a word. Light soon intervenes and says that Rachel is in the same class as him, so he questions what the guy wants. The student gets annoyed by Light's sudden intervention and starts cursing. The protagonist and the black-eyed girl arrive at the place of the next class. He says he hopes it's not too late, and she replies that she thinks they are on time. At that moment the guy who was trying to pick a fight starts to leave and tells Light to be careful. The protagonist asks his friend what happened between him and those guys. A little later the group attends the class. The teacher says that the history of the Unio Academy does not begin when the director founded the school, but from the moment the tower appeared in the primordial dimension. Suddenly someone takes a picture of Rachel. Those same guys are also watching the class. They comment among themselves that this girl shouldn't even be here. The one with blue hair says that he would give a queen's life if she decided to marry him. Rachel feels these looks from afar and feels uncomfortable. Ban and Light are also bothered. The protagonist gets angrier because the teacher doesn't do anything. With the tone of voice of these students, it is impossible not to hear what they are saying. Ban thinks for a moment and wonders if the old man is ignoring them or can't hear them. Suddenly Light loses his patience and calls the teacher's attention. He complains that the other students are making noise and it is difficult to concentrate in class, so he asks if the old man can do anything. The teacher asks the students not to make noise and soon after returns to teach. Ban and Light do not believe that this is all the man will say. The delinquents start to say that Light is nothing but an idiot. One of them comments that he only couldn't get Rachel's number because this guy got in the way. Other questions if they are a couple. That's why this guy is interfering. The one with blue hair says that the girl has a nice body and maybe is his type. As the conversation unfolds, Rachel's expression is one of horror. Light grits his teeth in anger. He even breaks the pencil he was holding. Ban puts his hand on his shoulder and asks him to calm down. Light questions how the protagonist can be calm when these delinquents are saying these things about his classmate. Ban asks if his friend is planning to fight them, then says that he doesn't have time to waste on useless things. Light is surprised to see that his friend considers it useless. The protagonist then pulls out his cell phone and says that fighting in class will make everything worse, so he calls his friend to see this. Light realizes that Ban is watching a live broadcast on ActionToon again, this time from their room. He asks what that means. The protagonist reveals that he will solve the problem. He is doing this. Broadcast himself and expects all the students to hear what the delinquents are saying. Light is shocked. Ban laughs frighteningly as he says that the idiot's conversation is being recorded and exposed at this moment. The guys keep talking like if everything was right. Meanwhile, Eve holds a small camera behind the boys. Suddenly, several negative comments about the action of the delinquents start popping up on the protagonist's screen. The guys are being called idiots and disrespectful. In addition, they also spoke ill of the tower. Someone asks if the teacher won't do anything. The protagonist of his group carefully observes the negative comments, which for them is positive. Yun praises his intelligence for doing this. Light is also pleased. Yun asks if Ban put the title of History of the Union Academy to reach public opinion and possibly the superiors. The protagonist replies that he wants to make sure the guys are ruined. Ruchel watches everything that is happening. Suddenly one of the delinquents asks what kind of comments are these that he is receiving. The trio soon realizes that they are being recorded and the blue-haired one orders them to look for the camera. The protagonist is silent in his corner. One of the guys finds Eve, but when he approaches she disappears into thin air. The blue-haired one assumes that this setup was made by Light. At that moment the teacher approaches with anger in his eyes and asks if this group is the same one that was making noise before. He then orders everyone to leave. The guy argues saying that he is trying to solve a problem. He was recorded without his permission. The teacher doesn't care about this and yells that everyone should leave. The next moment, the old man expels the students with his power. The teacher turns to the rest of the students and says that this group will receive F for a whole year, so if someone wants to have the same fate, just disrupt the class. Ban realizes that even an assistant teacher has enough power, but he still thinks that an F is not enough from what they told Ruchel. Light is also not satisfied. At this moment Ruchel finally speaks. She gives a gentle smile while thanking the boys for defending her honor. Girl also adds that this punishment should be enough. Ban replies that he really didn't do much. He doesn't think he's that strong, and that's why he thought of another way to deal with the situation, so there's no need to thank him. His friends gave a smile pleased that everything worked out. The next day in the training arena, the protagonist's team had the bad luck of practicing in the same arena as the group of delinquents. While Light was called, Ruchel hides behind Ban in fear. The blue-haired guy approaches and Light asks what he wants this time. The leader calls him an insect and demands that he explain what happened yesterday. The red-haired one says that thanks to that damn broadcast yesterday, his semester score is ruined. The guy in the mask adds that now they are being avoided even by his friends. The protagonist looks around and notices that the teacher is sitting. This one also looks like he won't do anything. The blue-haired guy gets annoyed and asks what the boy just said. Light quickly changes his mood. His eyes turn black. He then agrees to repeat and calls everyone barbarians. The group goes crazy and interprets this as the worst swearing in the world. The leader pulls a knife close to his face and starts trying to embarrass Light, saying that he is from a lower dimension. Suddenly a sword flies by and lands gracefully in Light's hand. The protagonist and the girls are surprised. System soon notifies that Ban has discovered a new concept. The sword exudes an intimidating yellow power. The blue-haired guy begins to tremble. Light brings the sword to the enemy's neck, who surrenders and kneels on the ground. The protagonist realizes that his friend has totally changed. His aura is different. It seems that Light is overflowing with anger. Ban wonders if all this is because of that sword. He also remembers that his system has discovered a new concept. At that moment Light says that it is good that the guy has recognized his place. Meanwhile the leader realizes that he still cannot move his legs because of the pressure. His friends try to do something, but they are also afraid. Light calls the teacher and asks what kind of punishment a person receives for suddenly attacking his classmates with real swords during class. The man thinks for a moment and confusedly replies that the academy encourages practical fighting, so to some extent the group of delinquents is not wrong. Light replies that this is not exactly what he asked. The professor then says that he removed a personal artifact. Light presents his defense saying that he was only defending himself from an enemy attack. The old man says that there is no way he can deny that he released his energy first. Light replies that this was his means of avoiding damage. The protagonist watches the scene closely. The blonde asks how the teacher intends to deal with the insults that the students made to him. The man thinks for a moment and then says he didn't see any of this. Light grits his teeth in anger and decides to finish off the guy with blue hair. Everyone looks horrified, but suddenly he is stopped by a pat on the forehead, given by Yun. Light complains and the girl tries to explain that he is not as powerful as he thinks, so he can't go around acting like this. The protagonist is happy that Light has really been stopped. Meanwhile, the teacher leaves angry. Ban talks to Rachel about how dangerous it all was. On the other hand, Yun continues to berate Light. A little later the group meets in the cafeteria. Ban comments that he thinks they will never be respected, especially the teachers who always seem to protect students from higher admission. He remembers that he even has a fight scheduled because of one of these teachers. Light trembles as he says that maybe they can think about trying to improve the situation based on how Ban solved it last time. The protagonist is against doing this because last time there was almost a bigger problem. Yun eats his jam while the boys continue talking. Ban tells himself that Light's current way is very different from what he saw in the arena. It was as if his friend had suddenly changed, as if someone had pressed a button, and there was still that intimidating sword. At that moment the protagonist tells Light that he wanted him to be honest. Ban asks if his friend can control the power he showed before. Light gets up from the table and starts to say that he can control himself. The boy claims that he only did that because he got angry with the lies of the professor. Ban asks if that was all there is to it and says that lies really are bad, but he is not sure if he should believe that Light can control that force. The friend asks the protagonist to trust him and assures him that nothing like today will happen again. Yun says that this is a relief. She believes that things could have turned out very badly if he was not stopped. Light lays her head on the table after hearing so much criticism. Yun tells Ban that she is starting to feel the advice that Teacher Yamina gave a few days ago about the regulars. The girl believes that if they continue like this, school life will get more difficult. So as a representative, she thinks that the protagonist should think of something for their future. The girl says she is willing to listen to him. Ban is taken by surprise. He remembers that over the last few days while living school life, he definitely began to realize what was bothering his team, the mentality of superiority based on birth or strength, and especially the strange contempt directed at the lower dimensions. Thinking about it, the protagonist wonders what outsiders like them could do in a place where these things are considered common sense, with no idea what to do. He asks the group what they think needs to be done to gain the favor of a wide and unspecified group. Light replies that he believes that conversation can bring people together. Yun, on the other hand, thinks that power is more effective. Ban replies that they are both wrong. He then makes the camera sign to the group and says that what he needs to gain the favor of a group is his appearance. The next day the group meets again. Yun asks if they are really going to make a channel that shows their daily lives. The protagonist replies yes and adds that where he comes from is a very common way to build relationships. The girl understands that what they need to do is build an image and show it to the general public. Ban takes the cell phone while Rachel helps with the lighting. He says that when you build an image in people's minds, it creates a sense of familiarity, so it can help the group. Light asks why they have to act out if they are looking for respect and admiration. Ban replies that it is not a staging, it is a real combat match. At that moment Yun asks Light to concentrate. The two start fighting. Yun comes out ahead. Ban and Rachel follow the fight happily. Light tries to get up. Yun starts to mock him, calling him weak. She says that it makes sense why he was so impressed with that strange artifact last time. The girl then encourages him to draw his sword if he needs strength. Light hears this and grits his teeth in anger. Ban continues recording with his cell phone and says that things are going very well. Rachel looks at the fight a little scared. She doesn't understand how this can make their school life easier. The protagonist replies that he won't change things immediately, but it will have an effect. effect, the fight between the students continues fiercely. Ban says that he intends to show everyone that his group is not something they can handle. Anyway, it's not good to worry about the results yet. At this point, the protagonist tells Rachel that her beauty is too precious for her to stress about things like this. The girl is shocked by this unexpected compliment. Ban says that the girl is more beautiful when she smiles. She has a face that can conquer anyone wherever she goes, so it's a shame to waste it on worries. Rachel hears this and gives a shy smile. She feels that whenever Ban says something, this thing will happen. Meanwhile, back to the fight, Yun asks where the guy is running and says that so far it was just warm-up. Light begs the protagonist to save him, since that day Class 11 has followed Ban's recommendation, recording everything from his day, even a bad soup he ate. All the videos were posted on their channel called Rebellion. The response was more than positive. The audience began to follow the day-to-day. They watched the fight and wondered if it was real. The protagonist also recorded the entertainment of his team with some games and even some conversations with teacher Yamaina. In addition, viewers always begged to see Rachel, claiming that she was very cute. The audience was loyal and always entered to see the videos, until one day the Rebellion channel posted an event, informing that the next day her group was going to start climbing the tower.